Oh, I'm Lynn.
I'm Arnie.
And here's what's happening with the wandering shepherds today.
Considered just a baby compared to the other caves.
But that's deep, the water in some spots.
All right.
Let's get started. Okay, today we're putting on our wandering shepherd's hats. Where are we going, Arnie?
We're going to the Bonnechere Caves.
They're actually the Bonnechere Caves.
Bonnechere Caves.
In Eganville. It's a long drive because guess what? It's raining again.
Think I can get
So
through there?
we're getting out of here. Let's go. So we've reached our first stop on the highway. That's where we go and have breakfast a lot of times. We're only about 15 minutes from home. And we're going on a 2.5 hour drive. So of course, Arnie has to fill up the diesel.
Deer.
It's not a deer, it's diesel.
Deer, right.
Got it on? Ready to go? We're off. Okay, we're here. We had the most harrowing journey here though. We ended up through the bush, over flooded roads, broken tree branches. GPS took us on the shortcut.
They know a lot about rocks. They weren't sure this was just some pretty plant fossil. So after the tour, they'd asked the tour guide, "Is sure we have is just some pretty plant fossil?" We weren't sure ourselves, so we sent it off to Museum of Nature in Ottawa, where they took a look at it for a few weeks. It came back with a lovely note that was attached to it. That note had said, "Congratulations, you just found a perfect example of absolutely nothing." We were a little confused why they'd say that, so we called them back, said, "What do you mean absolutely nothing? There's obviously something on this one rock." They said, "Sorry, we're just having a bit of a joke with you guys. What you guys actually found is an example of a trace fossil." So I'll flip this around. In my hand here would have been more than likely the ocean floor, and more than likely a trilobite here would have gone into the sand. It would have started up to dig up all these different tunnel systems, and it would have lived here, and then over time it would have moved out, and then the sand and mud would have slowly filled back in here, and it would have hardened up over time, leaving us this trace fossil. So really, for the grand finale of our fossil talk, you could say it's absolutely nothing, or what I like to call it, a wormhole through time from 450 million years ago.
Here's all the fossils around here. And he says I can film. This really good little tour guide here. He just told us how people discovered these caves when they were fjording these rapids and found the water disappearing. And the guy jumped into a sinkhole to see if he could get in there. And that's how he discovered the caves that we're going to, the Bonnechere Caves.
There's a very small gap at the end. Covered by the concrete. There's a very small gap at the end.
Trails, because chances are if you go off the trails, you might run into some poison ivy, and something you don't want to experience. It's not that fun. If you don't know what it looks like, it's this just down over here. If you guys want, I can grab some and pass it around so you guys can look at it better.
Sure, do that.
Yeah, you guys ready for that? No. Okay. That's probably a good idea. A couple other things as well is the first room we'll be entering is going to be the smallest room, and the rooms are going to get bigger from there. But if you feel claustrophobic at any point, just let me know and I'll show you our nearest exit. And feel free to take as many photos or videos as you'd like. Ask me as many questions as you have, as I'm sure I'm going to have an answer. And one other thing to know as well, it is quite wet in there because we did get some rain over the weekend. So a lot of the rainwater is just kind of making its way into the cave now. So there's going to be quite a lot of water.
can already feel the temperature difference, eh?
It's definitely much nicer in the cave than it is inside. But then when
You
you
okay?
leave the cave, you gotta go back out and hold it.
You get picked on that one? I wonder if you can hold this better than me.
It's not slippery, it's just wet.
Feels slippery.
It's dripping pretty bad, isn't it?
It's dripping. Come to this side to watch your head.
Yep.
I'll talk more about it in the office. So I'd like to officially welcome all of you to the Bonnechere Caves. You may have noticed all the water outside and might be wondering why there's currently no water flowing through here at the moment. It's because we do have 6 concrete dams in place. We actually have 2 down this tunnel over here around the corner. We have 2 down the tunnel that is behind, well, 3 down the tunnel that's behind me. And our biggest one of all is actually the staircase that we all would have just walked down. So that's what's keeping all the water from flowing through here now. Obviously, when Tom first came through here, that was not the case, as there was no concrete dams in place. Now, once Tom jumped into the sinkhole, he eventually found a tunnel, and he would have followed the tunnel until he got to this opening. And that tunnel that he followed was this tunnel here. So by the time he got to the end of the tunnel and he got to this opening, he realized he couldn't really go much farther down the main way because it was still full of water at the time. So he realized if he wanted to continue exploring this cave, he needed to look for another spot. Till eventually he had noticed this tunnel that was behind me, and Tom had decided that he felt pretty athletic that day. He had decided to try jumping across, but he couldn't get any sort of running start, so he just jumped from right where he was standing. And in the process of him jumping across to this tunnel, he had managed to land right in the center of this room, which happened to be where Cave's first whirlpool was. But luckily for Tom, it was only about knee deep, so he was able to grab onto these cave walls and actually pull himself across into this tunnel behind me, where we will reconnect with Tom later, and you'll get a chance to retrace Tom's footsteps. But before we get to that point, I'm going to get to the front and we can make our way into the next room.
His grandmother was.
As you make your way in here as well, if you look right here along the wall, you can see a great example of a cephalopod fossil.
Did Tom find this, or was it another guy?
It would have just been after the water got pumped out in here. We would have found it. Got a question? Part about that is we do have quite a bit of stalactites on the ceiling right here. And these stalactites will grow at about 1 cubic inch every 150 years, which actually puts this one here at about 800 years old. Now the oldest you'll see in the caves here is about 12,000 years old, about the same age as our cave. Now, chances are if you go to a different cave in the world, those stalactites are going to be much bigger, and those caves are going to be much older and bigger than ours, because our cave's roughly 12,000 as well. And it's considered just a baby compared to the other caves. We've lightly carved away at these cave walls, causing these little bumps to be here. But carbonic acid is just something, it's not going to harm you now, so it's not going to harm us anytime soon. Now, going to that story I want to talk about. Before I talk more about that story, I will need a brave volunteer to help me. Do you guys want to do it?
Sure.
Okay. Which one is your least favorite hand out of the two?
Like, in terms of using it?
Yes, just which one is your least favorite hand?
Probably the left hand.
Okay, then take that left hand, put it in that bowl until anything bites it off.
I vote my brother does yours.
All the way in, Felix.
It doesn't go further than this.
You need to put your phone in the thing.
Actually, no, it doesn't go further than this. I'm pretty sure it goes right there.
There's nothing in there?
No.
Whew, okay.
You're so brave. I vote my brother does it first.
Okay. So, obviously there's nothing in there right now. That was not always the case. When Tom had started taking tours down here, the boardwalk was a few planks wide, and the lights were much more dim. So he told people just keep their hands on the walls to stabilize themselves. And an elderly woman was doing just that. Or his She pulled her hand out, screaming. Hearing screaming on a tour is not the greatest thing to hear. So Tom came running to the back of the group, said, "Ma'am, you okay? What just happened?" He said, "Yes, Tom, I just had a bit of a fright. Can you tell me why your cave walls went from cold, wet, and bumpy to warm and fuzzy?" Tom was a little confused, shined his light in here to find two baby brown bats. They were cuddled up together, and that elderly woman gave a full-on body massage to them. I don't think those bats have been back since, but I always like to get a brave volunteer to check for me because, if I'm being honest, I'm a little too scared to do it myself.
You're just shy your item.
Maybe.
So when you say this cave isn't very old, is that because, like, so do the stalactites form even when there's water going through?
To make his first good decision, he decided to turn around for the day. But he came back the very next day with two more pieces of equipment. He came back with his best friend's camera and a little rubber boat. He decided to fill that boat up with air so he could continue on down, but quickly realized it could not be fully inflated as it would scrape up against these cave walls and eventually pop. So that's where Tom had the quick and smart decision to have it half inflated. It did manage to keep him to afloat enough, which allows him to continue. But before we continue with Tom's journey, I'm at a point where I'll let anyone that does want to go through this tunnel and retrace Tom's footsteps. Just before I step down though, there is quite a few puddles, so try and do your best to watch out for them. When you go around the corner back there, it gets a little smaller, so just watch your head. And like I mentioned, it brings you back to the first room we were in. So when you get out, hang left, and it'll bring you right back to where we are now. Other than that, I'll step down, and whoever would like to go through can. Tiny little caves where they're like crawling across.
The water's really deep back and they're filled with water. And they were on a ledge for like,
And I got a soap here already.
until they were rescued.
Yeah, I didn't hear about that.
I think that was two.
And since we didn't come the
But
other
it
way,
wasn't that long ago, but it was,
but that's deep, the water in some spots.
All right.
it's so funny to me.
You okay?
Also in your eyes.
So could you see when you had the camera? Okay, I walked down there and I walked back. Hopefully Arnie got that.
We have some survivors. Pardon?
This is where Tom turned back.
No, you turn back at the tunnel. Anyone?
Careful, okay?
Second day, this is not
This is craziness.
what we like to call our bat tunnel. However, we have a severe lack of bats.
No.
That's because the ones that will get here, they come here in winter to hibernate. So chances are if you come here close when we're closing, you might see a couple bats in here getting ready to hibernate. But lately there hasn't been as many coming back as you'd like to because there's been a white-nosed fungus going around, wiping out majority of the bat population. But they've been starting to make a great comeback, so we're hoping to have a lot more this year. Now, going back to Tom's story, so he would have gotten into his little rubber boat and he would have made his way down over here. At the time, the water level was about this high, placing Tom and his head about here. So Tom was quite high up. You may have also noticed this tunnel is slanted downhill, which means the water is speeding up, and so is Tom. So he realized he needed to slow down. So to do that, he had the quick and smart idea to stick both of his hands out and drag them across these cave walls. He managed to slow himself down a little bit, but in the process of doing that, he managed to wake up every single bat that was in here. At the time, since there was no white-nosed fungus, there were a few hundred bats that were in here. So as he made his way down this tunnel, there were hundreds of bats swarming around his head. But till the day that Tom had passed away, he had claimed that all these bats that were flying around his head didn't really scare him. He claimed what scared him more is what he heard coming from the room behind me. So if you want to follow me, we'll see what scared him the most.
Here comes some more ones over here. I know.
It's like raining in here. It's so wet. Dripping down on our heads.
So this here is our biggest room in the caves, and we like to call this room the parlor. The reason why we call it that is we used to have some things that would have happened down here. We used to have some underground dining. We would have had tables in here along the back tunnel. We don't do that anymore though. We also would have had some underground concerts down here. We would have played some, classic rock, hard rock. And we've also had 3 separate weddings down here. If you don't believe me, we have pictures of those weddings back at the booth. Notice all the carving starting right over in this corner, making its way back and forth over into here, where it created these 2 holes up here with jets shooting all the way across to right here. So the water pressure was quite intense at the time. Now you may also remember following the water level, it brings Tom to a bit of a cutoff, meaning Tom can't really go much farther. But before he got to that point, as he came flying down the back tunnel, he came crashing into this wall here. It happens to be our cave's biggest stalactite. It's about 12,000 years old, the same age as our cave. But once he hit this wall, he had slowly started to tip over, and he didn't really think of this as, wow, what a great geological piece of history. He thought of it as, wow, what a great handle to grab onto. But you may remember he had 2 things in his hands. A
That was the camera. No, I would do the camera because then you can actually see what's in front of you.
I can agree with both of your reasons, for sure. I'd like my light to see. I would definitely draw my camera. But in the 1950s, when Tom first came through here, the cameras, they were worth a lot, and he also wanted to be a great friend. So he decided to drop the flashlights, which had plunged him into complete darkness.
Is it gonna be the flash on the camera?
I'll just ask that you keep all your lights off so we can truly experience it, and there isn't really going to be anything you can take a picture of in the dark anyways. Grab onto someone you trust. Try not to move around much, as these rocks are going to sneak up on you quick. Yeah, that's all the wood that's keeping the water on its way. So this here is our deepest section in our caves. Does anyone have a guess on how deep you think we are right now? No, too deep. What do you think?
I would say 250 because if we go anywhere below 300, it's like 3 miles.
You are still too deep. 60 feet, you gotta go deeper. 100 feet, you're just too deep. Deeper. Deeper. 90 feet. We are currently 90 feet underground right now. And you might be wondering how are we that deep? It's because we've been cheating. As we've been going down, there's been a hill above us making its way up, making us much deeper than we actually think. Now, right here is an example of a limestone bridge, and it shows how thin limestone typically gets. And it shows there hasn't been really any shifting in these cave walls, because if there were any shifting, it would have fallen down. And right here, you see a bunch of straight lines. Look right across, they're all parallel with each other. So if there was shifting, that would not be parallel either. Now, I'm sure most of you have noticed all the water here beside the boardwalk. The reason why there is quite a lot of water beside the boardwalk is because we are below the water table, which means the water naturally wants to flow its way up, which is why we have pumps installed down here that are constantly running to make sure that the water does not fill back up in here. But in the winter, we will close, and the water goes just below the big light that is up there. So it gets quite high up, and we remove all these lower section lights. We deal with Canada's really cold weather, and if it was to, these cave walls would eventually start to crack and crumble, leaving no cave. And And that's also why the bats like it so much, because when we do flood the cave in the winter, it stays at cool 12 degrees Celsius all year round. But since I have everyone believing me how safe we are, let's continue. For the next part, I'm just going to do some talking right here because where we would be doing some talking, there is quite a lot of water. So after I'm done talking, as we make our way past it, then you guys can take a look as well. Oh yeah, there's a lot of water right now. No, we don't have to walk through the water though, but instead of you guys just standing in the water, getting soaked in. Yep. So after you guys are walking by, I would not recommend pulling that stick because if you do, all these rocks are going to come falling down. So just don't touch it and we'll be safe. Now the main reason why these rocks all fell is because this is where cave's third and final whirlpool would have been. There would have been some big pillars that were holding up the rocks over here. And that whirlpool would have carved away at that pillar, causing these rocks to fall. And when they all fell, they fell in place, and then it didn't cause any shifting in these cave walls. But we are still perfectly fine down here, as long as you don't move that stick. And as well, a couple other things, yep. That's been there for many, so I would not know. That's the thing, we replace the stick every now and then, so that one's been there maybe 10, 15 years, I'd say. Yeah. Come back and would be combed out and he'd get the proper tours. Once he got back from vacation, that was not the case. The water level was at the same height they had left it at. So we got the divers to come back and take a look at the pumps. And they said, Tom, your pumps are... Yep.
How did they install the light there?
See, the owner, he would have kind of crawled over there and he would have put the lights in himself.
How did he put the electric? Because those roads are not safe.
But you will go up some stairs and you're going to get to a fork in the road. If you find that fork, please hand it to me. I need it to eat my dinner when I get home later.
Oh, it's warm out here.
Can I go up the stairs, man?
He said it was deeper because there's a mountain on top.
Yeah, so we're going down there.
Yeah.
Feel the heat, eh?
Yeah.
Well, babe.
Was that wet in there?
Sorry?
Was that wet in there?
Yeah. He said the most time it's not wet.
No. He said even yesterday it wasn't raining as bad in there. Makes for a good hair day.
Sorry?
This is where we came out, and he's right. When you walk out the door, it's like stepping into Narnia. Going through the wardrobe door. Huge temperature difference. This is a Canadian cave, nothing like the American caves, but we take what we can get. Doesn't it feel like Narnia out here now?
Sorry?
Doesn't it feel like Narnia now?
Rainforest. Oh, except for those hydro lines. I didn't recognize you.
So he said we could use a lot of his talking and stuff, so I'm going to use that because he explained it better than anyone else could do it. And we're going to go explore the area here now.
I still find it extremely funny that it would go into a hole to enforce itself out. Why wouldn't it just go down the canal? It must have had a crack to begin with.
Yeah.
And it followed
We're
that
coming
crack.
up to the sinkhole, and this is how the guy who discovered the caves, Tom, found them. Well, how he got in. He took a rope and climbed on down there.
On that tree right there, huh? See the rope marks?
Yep, right on that tree. See it? No, I don't think we can see it.
I can. Use your imagination then. Don't be a stick in the mud. Don't drop your camera either, 'cause I'm not getting it. Well, he must have realized
You
it.
think that they would let people go in there?
He must have
'Cause that's
realized
pretty
that
cool.
he must have realized that the water was going in. He just had to walk over the hill that was coming out. I mean, it can't be that dumb.
You're kind of like that girl. Rat snake nesting area, coyote den habitat. Well, that would be a perfect place for both of those creatures.
I got the camera.
You can't tell with the camera, but it's a really huge sinkhole and cave down there. So this is the Bonnechere River. That's pretty.
Maybe sometimes the boards are kind of saggy.
This one's a little more saggy.
Wouldn't be surprised if the mill here wants. They're controlling the water here. Controlling the flow of it, the level of it. Is that quite the washroom? The water here comes all the way from Algonquin Park, they say. It's fed right under the bridge. That's where we were.
It's all fenced off, so we can't go down there. Otherwise, you know, we would have scrambled down. But we're at the age now where we follow rules. The other side of the road I could get over, right down to the water. Arnie's in the car, and this is a great view, and he's totally missing it. Oh well. Hopefully you can see it all. Right now I can't see, I'm backlit. We made it home. Wasn't the most exciting of caves, but it was a little bit fun. So we got away from the farm, and apparently it's going to be sunny tomorrow. So Arnie's going to run out to the field and cut a little bit of hay down in hope that we get some first cut hay off. It's been crazy. Anyway, hope you enjoyed your time with us. If you did, please check out our full-length sheep farming videos at Ewetopia Farms. Bye for now.